In around a week's time, the Football World Cup kicks off in Russia. But at TRT, we've got our eye on the alternative World Cup being played here in London. 16 teams from unrecognised nations, regions seeking independence and minority groups. Can football succeed in helping their cause when politics has failed? You're watching Roundtable with me, Shuli Ghosh. There are 47 members of the Confederation of Independent Football Associations, or CONIFA as it's called, none of them able to qualify for FIFA. Who are they, and how does a round ball and a pair of football boots make a difference in their lives?
Stateless peoples, isolated dependencies, persecuted minorities, all playing football in a World Cup competition of their own. They're teams you've probably never heard of, but they represent nearly 330 million people worldwide. Can football play a part in putting their stories in the spotlight? The Confederation of Independent Football Associations, or CONIFA, provides a platform for teams left out of professional football. The organisation itself is apolitical, but the tournament gives players a sense of national pride.
What CONIFA does is it doesn't rate people's identities, it doesn't comment on their validity. We say to you, who are you and how can we help you play for that identity?
CONIFA's 47 members include Tibet, which rights groups say remains politically and religiously suppressed by China. Northern Cyprus, whose independence is considered invalid by the United Nations. And Tuvalu, a collection of tiny islands in the South Pacific, at risk of disappearing below sea level due to climate change. This year's tournament hosts are Barawa, a port town in Somalia that was, until recently, under occupation by armed group Al-Shabaab.
There's still sympathisers in and around. They don't want people, congregating in large areas, and football tends to bring people up. There's nothing else to do.
Getting behind their team brings together those who feel more of a connection with their cultural region than with their country of birth. The competition is also a chance to get back to the grassroots of football, a game that has become bloated with money and tarnished by corruption at its highest levels. Football's top earners have salaries of up to £500,000 a week, money that teams like Matabeleland only dream of. They're in the UK for the first time, representing Zimbabwe. But politics off the pitch can get in the way of the game. CONIFA has struggled to attract sponsors, scared of ostracising themselves from FIFA, its business partners, and China.
We've had 4 fairly major sponsors get very close to signing, ask us to remove Tibet from the competition, and then leave when we say no.
And for some of the teams, regional tensions are never far away.
There's been 2 attacks in Barawa in the past 3-4 weeks, I think, and one of the attacks was on a football pitch.
For the Barawa team, playing in CONIFA is about more than just football. It's an act of defiance. The beautiful game has empowered the community at home, and it's given them hope.
It's like a light bulb, and it's all of a sudden there's light in Barawa.
Bullied by overbearing governments, overlooked by international donors and unacknowledged on the global stage, these teams hail from forgotten corners of the world. But this tournament is putting them on the map, and on the football field at least, they've got everything to play for.
Well, joining us now from Tilburg in the Netherlands is Sangita Jaghai, who's a researcher at the Institute on Statelessness and Inclusion. At the table with me is Tom Perez, who used to work with Football Beyond Borders. Perez Ndlovu, captain of the Matabeleland team, which is taking part in this year's CONIFA's World Cup, and the tournament's commercial director, Paul Watson. Perez, let me start with you, because your team represents people in Zimbabwe who suffered greatly during the 1980s. What does it mean for Matabeleland to be taking part in the CONIFA World Cup?
First of all, as the captain for Matabeleland, we are quite happy to be taking part in the CONIFA World Cup, and we are quite happy to be given such an opportunity by CONIFA Matabeleland is a region in Zimbabwe, that is covering the Matabeleland area, that is Matabeleland South and Matabeleland North, and Bulawayo being the capital for Matabeleland. And Matabeleland, as you have said, is a group of people who have suffered a lot, but CONIFA has given us a chance to heal our wounds and to try and make peace through playing football.
And it's a way of showcasing your cultural identity, isn't it? And you've also got Bruce Grobbelaar on your team, who is a name that a lot of people would recognise.
Yeah, I think Bruce Grobbelaar is just white in colour, but inside him, he is a true Matabele-born child. Bruce Grobbelaar attended all his school days back in Zimbabwe. If I can recall well, he went to Hamilton in Bulawayo, Zimbabwe. So
yeah, I know he's a big supporter of your team. He's been coaching and, of course, legendary goalkeeper. And Tom, you became acquainted with CONIFA during your time with Football Beyond Borders. How does it help people like Perez, I suppose, defend their cultural identities and highlight the struggles that they've had?
Yeah, I think it's an incredible tournament. I came across it online because I think what they've done really well on social media is really amplify the message of representation for different ethnic communities. And for the first time this year, I saw that Matabeleland were going to play. And my parents lived in Matabeleland for 30 years. They were Spanish missionaries that actually went to Zimbabwe and spent a lot of time there and found a home in Matabeleland and actually learnt the language. They speak a bit of Ndlovu.
Didn't you take a penalty against Bruce Grobbelaar at one point?
How did you know that?
Did you get it in?
No, I didn't. So I have to rectify that. Me and Bruce, we need to talk about that. But, you know, this is exactly what Malumi is saying. Bruce Grobbelaar speaks Ndebele. My middle name is Tembinkosi because my parents lived there for so long and gave me that name because the Ndebele culture is so strong and so welcoming that anybody who goes there becomes part of that family. And I think this is exactly what's happened with the players who've been here. These guys, we were having barbecues with them after the games. We've been dancing with them. They always dance with the fans. They dance with the opposition. These guys are something special, and it's so good that CONIFA are giving them the opportunity to be here. Let
me bring Sangita in because I think a lot of people will underestimate just how many people around the world this idea of statelessness or being dispossessed or struggling as a minority actually affect. I mean, we're talking millions of people.
Yeah, so statelessness is indeed not being recognized by any country as a citizen. And as a result, the state doesn't feel responsible to protect these citizens or grant them their most fundamental human rights. And we're talking about 10 to 15 million stateless people worldwide. And the UN Refugee Agency says that every 10 minutes, at least one child is born stateless somewhere in the world.
So what do you think of the idea of the CONIFA World Cup, the alternative World Cup? Is this a good idea?
I think it's a fantastic idea to show that these issues exist because statelessness is very much a hidden issue. And the teams that are playing in the tournament are some of the largest stateless groups worldwide. I see a team that's the Rohingya. I mean, they are made stateless. They were made stateless in Myanmar because they're deprived of their nationality, and they are being excluded from society and targeted through systematic discrimination. And they're playing in CONIFA, as well as, for instance, Northern Cyprus, where the ethnic Turkish people there are not being granted nationality because of fears that it would alter the demographics there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great opportunity for teams that don't qualify for FIFA. Paul, we saw you in the report there talking about some of the challenges in hosting something like this. Now, the organisation itself is apolitical, but some of the problems it faces are political. For example, the struggle to get sponsors.
Yeah, it's sort of the ultimate paradox at the heart of CONIFA is that we are apolitical. We're not here to say that we back any specific claims to sovereignty, to nationality. That's not our job. All we say to you is, what is your identity, and let us help you represent that identity through football. Now, the problem here is that simply recognising the right to identity of certain people is seen as political to other powers. It does scare people, it scares off sponsors, but the truth is we're just providing a platform for people. Anyone who comes to me and says, this is my identity, this is who I am,
So that's interesting that you say anybody, because some of the members are obvious. Tibet, Abkhazia, Northern Cyprus, the Rohingya people, as Sangita was saying, Darfur, Barawa, which represents the Somali diaspora in the UK, but also Yorkshire.
Sure, and that's essentially it. I think we, a lot of people.
The Yorkshires, they're not dispossessed though.
No, and that's the misunderstanding of CONIFA that's gone on a little bit. We are not just for the dispossessed, for the stateless. We are for anyone who feels their identity isn't being represented through football. So who are we to question whether someone has the right to say they're first and foremost from Yorkshire, secondly an Englishman? If someone says to me, I am passionately from Yorkshire, why shouldn't we let them play in the Yorkshire shirt? I think that slightly has been misrepresented. Amongst our teams, there are a lot of humanitarian stories, there are a lot of horrific stories, and we're using football, hopefully, giving a chance for people to repair some of the terrible chapters in their history. But that's not solely what we do. And I think it would almost be condescending if it was solely what we do. We're open to everyone to express their identity, and if that's the Isle of Man, if that's Yorkshire, that's still valid. And these guys love playing against teams like Matabeleland. If we just said to you, right, you're a group of people who have suffered, you all get to play against each other, I feel that's less valid in a way. I feel everyone should be equal, everyone should have the right. I think that's a more powerful statement.
Do you agree with that, Tom? I mean, because the whole thing raises questions about FIFA's rules for eligibility, what constitutes a nation and who should be allowed to join. But is there a danger you could go too much the other way and everybody can?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's not forget that states in themselves, even the FIFA ones, even the UN ones, they're all fictions. We made these things up. We gave these things names to help us organise the world and to put things in a way that, made it easier for trade and so on. But states are fictions. So what is stronger, actually, than a state fiction is a cultural identity. That can also be called a fiction, but it's got a lot more history. It's got language, culture. It's got loads of things that people can really identify with. Whereas states is just somebody saying, here's a flag and an emblem, and this gives us the right to control this area through a monopoly of violence. That, for me, isn't enough to really say that something is a nation. So I think what CONIFA have done is great, because it's saying, look, cultural identity is so much more important. The Matabeleland cultural identity is unique, and it's different in some ways from the wider Zimbabwean national identity. Now, the two can coexist. And what CONIFA is doing is saying, look, let them coexist. Let the Matabele people come to London and play their football matches, for example. And the beauty has been that Zimbabweans in London, even the ones who aren't from Matabeleland, have joined in the celebrations, because they know that those identities can coexist.
I was going to ask about, who supports these teams. Let me ask you first, Perez, how difficult was it to get your team into London? Because you had to do a lot of the fundraising yourself, didn't you? Crowdfunding to get the team here.
Yeah, I think in most of our fundings, we're getting a lot of support from people we don't even know. I think we tried a lot of channels where we can get people all around the world who can support us. We're not trying to say we are asking for support from people who are coming from Matabeleland, because I believe there are people who are not even from Zimbabwe, who are not even from Matabeleland, who supported us all the way up to London, and they are still supporting us today. And to our surprise, we played our first game here. The stadium was packed, and I believe almost 3/4 of those people, they are not even from Matabeleland.
It must have been an amazing feeling to perform, to play in front of such a packed stadium.
Yeah, it's that thing that we left home and we are saying we are going to be playing in empty stadiums, because like we are going to a no man's land. You don't expect anyone to be supporting you out there. But a lot of people were wearing our regalia. A lot of people were putting on the Zimbabwean flag. A lot of people were even singing our songs, because I think we produced a song and we posted it online, and a lot of people were singing our song. That was something amazing to us.
That is amazing, and that just sums up what this is about. And you had the permission of the Zimbabwe government to travel to London, right? So what I wanted to ask Sangita is, it's an apolitical organisation, and its goals are obviously very positive, but the more successful it becomes. Is there a problem, or will some governments have an issue with this? For example, China, who doesn't particularly want Tibet recognised as its own autonomous right.
I mean, there is always a chance when you raise human rights issues that sponsors take a step back and say, we don't want to actually sponsor you because we don't want to interfere with any relationships, or governments criticizing what you're doing in terms of organizing the event. And the more successful the event will be, the more challenges will probably, come on your path. But I think it shouldn't back you off from organizing it, because it's a beautiful event, and any human rights issues that you raise will come with resistance in a way. So
there was a refugee team on the
especially,
Olympics, wasn't there, not so long ago, and
there is two things.
got a lot of
Indeed.
positive coverage.
There was in 2016 in the Olympics, there was the refugee team, and the Olympics being very clear and open, saying we are in solidarity with the global refugees. So why can't the World Cup be in solidarity with the world stateless? And what I do want to mention is that the good thing about the alternative World Cup is that it doesn't solely focus on the political issues of statelessness, but it also more broadly focuses on cultural identity, and that, I think, softens it a bit.
Paul, we were talking about, Tom was saying how much good coverage this has had on social media. Do you think it will make conventional tournaments like FIFA think more about how they run their tournaments?
No, not in the least. I mean, the truth is we don't take shots at FIFA. They don't take shots at us. They know of our existence. We have to maintain cordial relationships from our side, because there are several of our teams who should be in FIFA, and hopefully one day will be, and we would like to assist them in doing that. That only applies to a small number of our teams, because they are UN recognised sovereign states, which means there's no theoretical prohibitive status to allow them into FIFA. But basically, we maintain that relationship, otherwise we would be hindering the progress of certain ones of our members. We would never want to stand in the way, for example, of Tuvalu or Kiribati getting their rightful place in the Oceania Football Confederation, and that is the best place for those teams. For a lot of our other teams, there is no realistic hope of getting into FIFA. The politics doesn't allow it. It just will never happen. So for them, we will just continue to provide the best tournaments we can. But we're not seen as a threat. We're a very small volunteer-run organisation. There's about 6 of us who have set this World Cup up, and we've worked 15-hour days for 15 months for free to do it, and that's who we are. But FIFA don't see that as a threat. They have billions and billions. We're struggling to bring this tournament in at break even.
And that's a great question about the money, actually, because as all of you know, football has pretty much moved from a grassroots organisation, a grassroots sport, to this big corporate multi-billion pound juggernaut where it's all about the commercial interest. So this seems to be back to a purer form of football. Would you agree with that?
I would definitely agree that it's back to football as it would maybe be experienced by massive crowds when football first started becoming popular. Yeah. Football was a working class game, especially in this country and in many countries around the world, because of the simplicity of the game. You just need a round shaped object. Often in Zimbabwe, we just tie together plastics with strings really tightly until you've got a sphere that you can kick around. And that beautiful simplicity is what attracted people to football in the first place. Now, the way FIFA and the Premier League have taken football, they've made it this huge commercial sport and commercial entity. That is a reflection of society. It's not just happening in football, it's happening everywhere. But football holds up that mirror. Now, what CONIFA is doing is holding up a different mirror to the aspects of the football game that are still grassroots, that are still democratic, and that do still allow people to feel included. I've seen people from all across non-league football in England coming to watch this game. I've seen kids from a diverse range of backgrounds, which you will never be able to get tickets to the Premier League because the Premier League is too expensive. So I think CONIFA is promoting the sport to people across from across football and making it really accessible. And it's that accessibility and inclusion that I think is what makes it a wonderful
And that
tournament.
all comes back to this central question about national identity and being able to express yourself on the field. Sangita, when we look at platforms for cultural identity and raising awareness of perhaps what people are struggling to do, football is just such a great platform for that.
Yeah, I think football, especially is indeed at the very grassroots level, is apolitical. It brings people together. It unites people regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, and this is so important also for the stateless people because a lot of the stateless people are born in a country, they're raised there, they speak the language, they have their friends there, they have their family there, but they're rejected by the state. So they feel this national pride, but they're rejected by that very same state. And this tournament and football actually goes beyond that and says, you can participate in society through football, you can feel that national pride or that cultural identity through football. And it's something that they cannot find in their home country. So it's a good event.
Paul, you were saying there was a core of just a small group of you who were working on this. The founder, CONIFA's president, Perez blind, who was a referee and makes the joke that he's a blind referee, which is brilliant. He says you've had so many applications to join this organisation that you might even have to look at the membership rules again. I mean, are you surprised by just how successful it seems to have been?
We have been a little surprised, actually. I think we knew a lot of things were in our favour. We came to London, the city, it's famous and it's celebrated for its multiculturalism. It's what makes London great. So this was a good place. London also is a home of grassroots football. Even at 7th and 8th level football, you get passionate fans coming in. We also have our event happening just before the Russian World Cup, which I think is more tarnished than any World Cup in history. So we knew things were on our side. We were slightly surprised by the sheer sort of acceptance of the tournament, the way people have bought in. And some of the things we've seen are just so unlikely, see it being at Bedfont Sports and seeing an famous Italian soprano from La Scala singing the national anthem. Seeing the Matabeleland guys at Haringey Borough dancing in the car park with local fans. And you think, this is such an unlikely combination. But what I've loved is everyone has bought into the event. And they've, more than that, people are asking questions they wouldn't normally ask, and they're doing it because we're doing it through football. So people who, if I said to you, can we sit down and talk about, identity? Can we talk about fighting the influence of Al-Shabaab in Barawa in Somalia? They would glaze over. But if you say there's a football team here and they can't play for their nation because it wouldn't make sense for them, this is what they represent, people are immediately enthralled because they're engaging with people, and that's the key. We're all people, and they love chatting to people and finding out, well, why are you doing this?
Has that been your experience? Have you found that more people are asking about what the issues are with Matabeleland and your history and the struggles that your people have had?
Yeah, I think as for us, a lot of people don't know anything about Matabeleland. I think people know about the general Zimbabwe, our country. So,
and just to put it into context, that the Ndlovu people suffered massacres during the 1980s, so their struggle has been ongoing. And although today there's a unity accord, but there are still issues with discrimination, poverty, that kind of thing. Is that correct?
Not exactly. I think a lot of changes have taken place.
Right.
But there's that thing that has remained as part of Matabeleland, if I might talk about culture.
Sure.
Matabeleland is a very diverse area with people. The cultures, they are of the same. The beliefs, they are of the same. But you discover that these people haven't got that chance to explore themselves, show the world what they are. And this has been an opportunity to the people of Matabeleland through CONIFA to show the world what they have got, show the world how they are.
And what good footballers you guys are. You've got another match coming up, haven't you, this week in London?
Yes, we have left over with 2 matches. That is tomorrow and Saturday.
This tournament runs every 2 years, and I'm told that apart from the CONIFA World Football Cup, there is also the European Football Cup next year.
Yep, so next year is European, Asian and Women's World Football Cup. So
Women's Football Cup, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's what was missing, I feel.
That's so good.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't be inclusive and try and represent everyone and leave out 50% of the world's population. So no, the Women's World Football Cup next year, we hope to build on this success and to make it even bigger.
Excellent. And any predictions for who might win this particular Football World Cup?
We were discussing this earlier. The team that Matabeleland played on the first day, these guys, they're called Padania. They're a region in northern Italy, and they have a few players who played at Serie A, one of which had played for Lazio, Sevilla, Valencia, and he'd had 70 caps for Lithuania. So this guy is a baller, right? He's really, really good, and the whole team is great. I think they've made it through the quarters now. They're in the semis. They beat Matabeleland, so they must be good.
Okay, and everyone can keep up with the matches and the results. Website, Twitter, it's all over social media. Guys, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Great discussion on CONIFA. That's it from us for now. Join us next time on Roundtable. Bye for now.